Q&A time. So for this video, I'm going to be answering your guys' questions that you have asked me on my Instagram. I put up a thing on Instagram where people can ask me some questions, and I got a couple good ones, and I think I want to answer them, and hopefully they'll answer some of your questions that you guys might have. Let's get right into it. Question number 1 is going to be from Kyle. He asks, do you use zooms or primes? I don't see you talk much about zoom. I primarily use prime lenses. I don't have nothing against zooms. I don't own a pair of zooms. Actually, before I came to the Sony ecosystem, all I mainly had was zooms. I had a Sigma 24-105. When I had my Canon, I had a Canon RF 24-105. So I always used to use zoom lenses, but when I switched over to the A7S III and now the FX6, I primarily only have a lineup of prime lenses. Reason being because I haven't been in a situation yet where I needed zoom lenses. I kind of do like prime lenses a little bit better because they are sharper, and I like the more shallow depth of field that you get and the lower f-stop that you get. They challenge me to move around more. They challenge me to get better composition because it's only one fixed focal length. When I was using zoom lenses, oftentimes I kind of got lazy and I just didn't want to move around. I just zoomed in to make my shot so much easier. Now, there's times where a zoom lens would be more practical, but I just haven't been in that situation yet to where I honestly was like, dang, like I wish I had a zoom lens for this. I don't mind switching out the lenses between set. I don't mind, making it work, moving around, getting creative with it. I enjoy primes, but maybe one day I'll get a zoom. I'm looking at getting like a 70-200. Like, I don't like 24-70. I just think 24-70 just isn't far enough. I know everybody praises that lens, but 24-70 doesn't really do much for me. I already have a 35 and I have an 85. So I just don't think that a 24-70 is just gonna do much for me. Like, if I think of a zooms, I want something that's really gonna reach, like a 24-105. That's more ideal. I may get a 24-105, the Sony G version. But I'm thinking about getting a 70-200 or even a Sigma 100-400 for that extra reach. That'll be more for conference work, so that'll probably be the first time I actually do buy a zoom lens. So if you ever use a 70-200 or a Sigma 100-400, let me know in the comment section below, because I'm actually very interested in picking up one of those lenses. But hope to answer your question. I use primes. I like primes. I had zooms. I had a 24-70 Zeiss with my A7S III. Didn't really like it. Actually, I didn't like it at all, to be honest. Maybe one day I'll buy some zooms. Who knows? I'm not sure yet, but I like primes. Question number 2 is from Frankie Films. He asked, how do you get your client gigs? Well, that's actually a very good question, because honestly, a lot of it comes from word of mouth and a lot of it comes from networking, which is honestly something that everybody's going to tell you. But another big website that I use is called Production Hub. Production Hub is a paid subscription site that allows you as a freelancer to put yourself out there. It has companies and clients who are looking for your specific needs. So if you're a camera operator DP, you put that in the filter category, and any client that's looking for a camera operator or DP, if you pay for the subscription, I think it's like $69 a month, or it's like $7.99 for the whole year. There's a cheaper version, but I don't really suggest a cheaper version because you're not really gonna get exposure like that. You're not really gonna get seen. They don't really push your page out there like that, like how the paid version does. You can pay $69 a month and just do it like that if you can't afford the $7.99, because $7.99 is a pretty big price tag. That's a whole lens you can buy. But if you actually get the client work, it pays itself off in the long run, to be honest. But yeah, it's called Production Hub. I use that a lot to get production clients, or I'll use word of mouth, referral, networking, friend of a friend, along that line. So hope that answered your question. Question number 3 is from Joey Films Productions, and he says, hello Delandre, I'm new to videography and doing corporate work. I want to do some interview work, but don't have any idea on what would be a proper camera, lighting, and subject setup for the interview. What is your process? That's actually a very, very great question, because a lot of people do ask me that. What is my process on interview setups? Well, instead of me explaining it to you, I'm just gonna have to show you it. So now switching over to the iPhone, this is how I would have my interview set up. Again, except for that boom pole, that's a cheap boom pole. I would never use that. I honestly use that for my diffusion. I hold it for my diffusion. I don't really hold microphones on it because look at it. It was like it's gonna fall over. But typical setup would be camera placement right here. And then I would have the subject right here. And then I would have my key light right here. Now it goes vice versa as well. If you want to have the camera over here, you would do camera, subject, and then key light. That's typically how I want to have it. Now, boom pole, I wouldn't really put it right here, but it's only here because it's only like 3 feet, doesn't reach long enough. I typically probably would have it right about here and just boom it to 7 feet over there. You know, now you never want to have the boom pole on the same side of the key light, because if you have the boom pole on the same side of the key light, it could cast a shadow on the subject's face, and you don't want that. So if the key light is going to be over here, you need to make sure that the boom pole is on the opposite side of that. Now, if I was using a second light, I probably, since my key light is right here, I probably would want to have the second light maybe right here, or I would place it right here. Well, not directly in front of the camera, but more so ever on the side. I probably would do it over there since I already have a key light over here. I don't want to have just completely one side of my subject completely lit and then the other side completely dark. I wouldn't want that. So I probably would place the backlight right about here, you know, to give it good. And maybe I had a third light, I'd probably boom up a third light, do like a little hair light. Typically, that's probably what I would do. But this is basically just to give you the basis. This is how the interview setup would go, except for that pole. But now you know. So again, camera, boom arm, camera, subject, key light. This is what I would do. This is how I would set it up. So hope that answered your question. Question number 4 is from Alex Jones. He said, which camera brand do you recommend I get into for paid client work? Well, honestly, that is a subjective question, I think. I don't think there's necessarily a specific camera brand that you should own in order to get client work. But one thing I will say from user experience, a lot of clients that I worked with, they specifically asked for a Sony ecosystem. Now, I'm not saying that you have to own a Sony, but for my personal use, a lot of clients want the Sony ecosystem. But I have a friend who owns a C70 and he gets clients. So do not let the specific camera brand fool you. You can still get paid work. I honestly feel like, though, it does depend on your price range and how much money you're willing to invest into this camera category. Now, Sony has a whole bunch of third-party lenses that you can choose from all different price ranges between Viltrox, Sigma, Tamron. If you choose the Canon ecosystem, you're only stuck with the RF lineup, and that can get very, very expensive. If you go to Panasonic, I don't really know much about Panasonic lenses, or I don't even know much about the Panasonic lineup in general, but I think they have cheaper lenses just like Sony does. So it really just depends on your category, your price range, what you're wanting to afford, and what you're wanting to learn in the long run. But you can get client work with any lens, any camera, it does not matter. There's no specific brand that you got to stick with. There's no brand loyalty that you need. But from my user experience, so I will say the Sony ecosystem. So if you want to get one and you don't have one, I say get Sony. Try it out, see if you like it. But rent it first. Don't buy nothing. Rent everything out before you use it. You don't want to spend money on something that you do not like. I say rent it. I think Canon has better colors than Sony does. I will say that. I think Sony has came a long way with their color science, but I still think Canon does have better colors. But it's really up to you. There's not one brand that's going to get you more paid work. It's really just depends on your skill sets, what's going to get you the paid work. Your knowledge is going to get you the paid work. Your networking is going to get you the paid work, you know, etc., etc. But hey, if you're watching this video, join Sony. Be Team Sony. We love you. Question number 5 is going to be from XOXO Rico. He says, what are some lessons you learned on your first corporate gig? That's honestly another very good question. And I think the biggest lesson that I would give to anybody working corporate gigs is to be honest. If you messed up on a shoot, let that client know. Don't sit here and try to fix it. Don't sit here and try to play it off. Don't sit here in hopes that you can fix it in post. If you mess something up, just sit there, say, hey, cut, we got to stop. I messed up on my end. Explain to them what it is. Don't try to hide it. Don't try to lie. Don't try to play it off, because that will hurt your relationship with that client, especially if you're just getting paid just to be a camera operator and you're handing off the footage to the editor. You don't want to do that. There was actually a perfect example of a time where I was on set for the first time. It was way back in my early careers, and I didn't really know much about videography, cinematography, interview work, and none of that. And I was filming a photographer. They wanted like a mini documentary about what it's like to be a photographer, their upcomings, how much money they make, etc., etc. And I have another videographer friend who owns a wireless lavalier mic. During this time of my career, I never knew what a wireless lavalier mic was, nor have I ever used a wireless lavalier mic. So when I got ready to film and I had my subject, it was actually a Zoom F2. So if you know anything about a Zoom F2, they're like the wedding filmmaker's favorite wireless lavalier mic. But the Zoom F2, it doesn't come with a transmitter or receiver. The actual unit itself is the transmitter and the receiver. So everything is recorded upgraded onto the F2 with a micro SD card. And for some reason, with my little uneducated brain back in the day, I just randomly, miraculously thought that the Zoom F2 would somehow wirelessly connect to my camera, and as soon as I hit record, it would just automatically start recording because it was the Bluetooth version. So I thought if I just turn my camera on, it just somehow censors it and it just detects that the camera's on and it just pairs up automatically. I didn't know anything. And when it got time to actually record the interview, I turned the Zoom F2 on, but I never hit the record button because I thought I can just hit it on the actual camera, like most wireless lavalier microphones have, because they have a transmitter with a receiver. But luckily I had a boom mic and that was recording the audio, but the client actually wanted lavalier audio rather than a shotgun audio. So I tried to play it off and was like, you know what? I'm just not gonna tell them that I messed up. I'm just gonna simply just use the XLR audio and just say that that was a lavalier audio. But now it's very important for me, honestly, to admit my mistakes and be honest with them and just let them know, like, hey, I messed up. Can we get like 10 minutes to fix this? I didn't mic you up correctly, or I hear some scuffing on the audio. Like, can we do whatever just to fix it real quick? You know, I think honesty will go a long way when working with clients because they'll see your integrity and they'll be like, okay, they're an honest person. I can trust them with future projects. You don't want to lie to them. Don't lie to them. Don't play it off. Just admit that you messed up, and hopefully they're kind enough to be understanding and let you fix it. Some cases they'll say, no, you didn't get it right the first time. We're done. That's a wrap. We're not working no more. I have had cases like that. It's unfair, but you know, it is what it is. Very, very good question. Very good question. Question number 6 is from Mark Keese. He says, do you think passion projects are necessary as a filmmaker? If yes, then how do you balance them between client projects? Man, that's honestly another very good question. I actually love that question a lot because I love passion projects. Yes, I do think passion projects are necessary. I think they're a must for any and every filmmaker. And the reason being is because passion projects allow you to get your creative freedom. Now, if you're strictly a DP, a camera operator, and you don't have no editing skills and you hate to edit, then this probably is not for you. But if you're an editor like me, I actually love editing and I don't mind editing. I think passion projects are very necessary. I think they honestly free your mind up from the rat race of always just being a camera operator, going on set, filming something that maybe you're not as passionate about and you can't really tell the story that you want to tell, because at the end of the day, you're there to record the footage and then you're going to hand it off to an editor. So you have really no creative freedom. You have no say so in that project. I think passion projects honestly balance out what it is to be a filmmaker. I honestly feel like you should honestly occasionally now and then take on passion projects. You should set aside client projects and put like a week, maybe 2 weeks creating a passion project, creating something that you really love, something that's going to spark the fire in you. Because I feel like oftentimes when you are a camera operator and you're just being a DP for so long and all you're doing is filming client projects and nothing of your own, I feel like mentally it might take a toll on you. You know, you might feel like you're not doing enough. You might feel unhappy. You might start to get depressed because you can't tell the story that you want to tell. I feel like if you're going to own a camera and you pick it up, you have a story to tell. If you made that deciding factor that I want to film something, I want to be a videographer, you have a great story to tell. And I've seen some amazing passion projects that inspire me. I feel like you should use that as motivation to become a better filmmaker, a better cinematographer, a better videographer, whatever it is you want to label yourself as. I think passion projects are a must. And how to balance them out is maybe take on 4, 5, 6 client projects and then take a week off and do passion projects. You know, depending on the income source, obviously we all got to make a living. We all need to financially be stable. But I think passion projects are something that you should meditate into your filmmaking career. But I do believe that passion projects are something that you should merge into your filmmaking career. I think that there's something that is just, I don't know, it's just something about a passion project just gets you excited again as a filmmaker, you know. Testing something out, ultimately you having the say so. You don't have to really like rely on a client's perspective. You don't have to fulfill a client's needs. You can fulfill your own needs. You know, if you want to experiment with something that you would probably be scared to experiment with on a paid client, you can do that on a passion project because it's your project, whether it be your project or a friend's project. I think passion projects are honestly a must for all cinematographers, all filmmakers. I feel like they do bring out something in you that you didn't know that you have, and they open your mind definitely to different challenges, different perspectives, different emotions. They're really refreshing. I feel like that's just me. I love passion projects, and I honestly want to do a lot more of them, and I want to meet up with some local filmmakers and create something beautiful. You know, I can go on and on about this question, but I hope that answered your question. I hope that gave you what you were looking for, because I actually really do enjoy that question. That's a very, very good question. Thank you for asking that. Okay, number 7, which is my final and last question. It is from Armando. I'm not gonna pronounce that last name. I'm sorry, Armando. But he said, "What's the hardest part of being a DP?" I honestly think the hardest part of being a DP is being yourself, because the reason why I say that, hear me out. I think being yourself isn't always the issue, but it's what you tell yourself is what makes it the issue. Being a DP, sometimes mentally, you are your worst critic. You literally can beat yourself up mentally over and over and over again, seeing other DPs, seeing other directors, seeing all these other filmmakers create this wonderful, beautiful art, and then you're starting out and you're just like, man, where do I fit in? I feel like oftentimes we try to put ourselves in somebody else's shoes. We're like, okay, well, if that's their calling, then maybe I don't know who I am, or I don't know what I want to do, but I'm gonna hop on what they're doing because maybe that will fulfill me as well. I think oftentimes it's good to be yourself, but I'm speaking from like when you speak to yourself standpoint, because your words will honestly dictate the course of your life. If you're speaking negativity over yourself, if you're really mentally beating yourself up over and over and over again because a project didn't go the way you want it to go, or maybe this is your first client and you're super excited to work with them and they just leave you the worst review ever and they never call you back, and now you're gonna sit here and dwell on that and you're gonna think about it and you're gonna start speaking negativity over yourself. Maybe this wasn't for me, maybe I can't do this. I think that is often what times destroys cinematographers and DPs, because this is a big mental game now, because you're working with a bunch of people, especially if you're on set, or especially if you're just a one-man band, you're a freelancer and you can't really do everything on your own, because the type of work that, depending on the type of work you want to do, it's going to require a team. And I feel like if you try to do everything alone, you can be your worst enemy. I really do feel like it is a challenge as a DP to mentally stay focused on what matters most, mentally stay aware of, what, I'm a DP, I'm good at what I do, I have integrity, I'm gonna walk with confidence, I'm gonna walk with understanding, I'm gonna walk with wanting to fully grasp all it is that I can potentially do, all it is that's within myself, So, man, this is a deep question. I like it. It's good. But I do think yourself is the biggest issue. And the hardest part of being a DP is just what you speak to yourself, how you speak over yourself. If you want to speak negativity over yourself, then obviously you're going to get worse and worse and worse. But that's a very, very good question. Thank you for asking that. I hope that actually helps somebody. I feel like that helped somebody. So, well, that's it for today's video. Those were some very, very good questions, and I honestly enjoyed making this video. That was actually refreshing. I think I answered some questions for my own self. I hope you found benefit from it. I hope you gained value out of this video. If you like this video, leave it a thumbs up and put in the comment section below some questions that you have. I'm gonna answer them. I'm gonna make a part 2 if you guys really, really enjoyed it. Let me know. It was fun to make. Get out there, go film, stay blessed. Abiantu, Banjoni.